Yes, welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens. I am currently invisible, actually. You can't really see me at all. And the reason for that is my studio's not done yet, so I'm going to be coming to you as a disembodied logo in the center of your screen. Welcome, I am Bridger. I am the host of Tales of Citizens here, where we ask the deep questions about Star Citizen. And today we are coming back off of hiatus. I know that many of you will have noticed that we have been gone for a couple of months here. I have successfully moved into my new house. We have been putting together the basement. We have been buying all the extraneous things you need to buy and taking care of the outside and doing the upkeeps and the moving ins and all that stuff. We're mostly done except the studio in the basement and all the other work involved down there. We're finishing about 360 square feet down there, so it's a good project that we've been working on in the spare time because full-time jobs suck. But we want to get into the Star Citizen stuff here today, so let me introduce my co-hosts. I've got my good friend Calathulu on the left there. Welcome, sir.
Hey guys, how you guys doing? I don't have a new studio to talk about, but I do have a new setup, so you might hear me a little more clearly today in that I'm using a fan-free computer, and I need to fix this mic, but I think we got it dialed in. But it's good to be back. It's been a long hiatus. I am missing my Chargers beating up Gray's Seahawks, though.
Speaking of Gray, we've also got him here. Welcome, sir.
Hello.
All right, so I am now going to take us to our standard Around the Verse segment, where we quickly sort of describe what we've been doing in and out of Star Citizen. We'll certainly be talking all about Point 9 in a few minutes, so for now, let's just quickly go over what have you guys been doing when you're not playing Arena Commander for the last few days, /weeks, /months.
Wildly theory crafting. I mean, really. I got a hat. I like my hat.
That is a cool hat. Can't go wrong with that.
So life is good.
All right, so what I have been doing actually is I dove down into the pit of despair known as Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition. Actually, I guess you go pit of joy because I'm really enjoying it actually myself. And we can certainly talk a little bit more about this afterwards because I've been enjoying it fairly thoroughly and I can explain why I think it's a good edition, et cetera, et cetera. We'll do that in the sort of the equivalent of Wingman's Hangover. We'll call it Bridger's Bodega. No, damn it, I got nothing. So the one thing I did want to mention, though, is that 5th edition is very deadly because I built a bard, which was probably my first mistake. And
That's always the first mistake.
It's always the first mistake. And in my first game, he died in the first session by getting eaten alive by rats. Like, he was going to insert a key into a thing, and out of the refuse, he had a poor perception check, and a swarm of rats came, and in one shot, landed into the ground from 100% HP down to 0 in one shot. Then my friends, quote-unquote, decided to save me by pulling out his sword and therefore dropping the torch that would let them see because I was the only one that had dark vision in that tunnel. And so ended the life and time of Marduk the Bard. So then I had my friend invite me to his game that he was running, and I decided to just reuse that character sheet since it never made it to level 2, and it didn't really lose anything. So I was like, oh, I'll just do. I don't want to feel like putting together another character. I'll just use this character again. I popped into existence in the middle of a campaign, and I took 2 actions before being 100 to 0'd again, and then failed my death save 3 times in a row. But this time, I wasn't the only one who died, because the cleric also died in that encounter. It wasn't my fault.
Okay.
That's the ideal.
But after that, I went and made, like, a 16 Constitution Barbarian, because fuck dying is what I say.
There you go.
Only better if it's a 16 Constitution Barbarian Gnome.
No, it wouldn't have been better. No, I don't think so. All right, so the other thing that I've got going on, I have the 2 PAX East posters that I have left over. I had 4, so I got 2 framed and put on the walls, but I got 2 more. Both the Aegis one and the Bomb the Vandal one that I'm looking to trade with anybody who went to Gamescom and got those posters there. So if anybody is interested, send me a PM on the official forums or on the Team Legacy forums, or just send an email to feedback@talesofcitizens.com because I would love to trade posters with you, and that would be cool. Okay, Callie, what have you been doing recently?
Well, I don't have Bridger's, cool tales of trading posters, unfortunately, and I have not been playing D&D 5th edition, but I have started something almost as fun, Zombies Run, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's an iOS and Android app, and it allows you to basically run, get supplies as part of like a mini game for a group, and so it's a way of making your runs a little more interesting and not quite as God, I'm just running a straight line screaming. Other than
Oh,
that,
you mean it's like you are
yeah,
actually
it's
doing
got
a jogging.
GPS.
You're jogging.
You run, yep, and then occasionally a horde will catch you. You have to outrun them, etc.
Can't
So
you tell he looks so svelte right now?
Wait, so do you have to?
So
You're like have to be in a big field to do this. So you
no,
have
no,
to
you
like.
just run. It keeps track of your pace using GPS, and it gets you going that way. And I see that we have on the screen here some kind of mini game where you're running around and stabbing purple things.
Is this
Can we
not it? I went
congratulate?
for. It says zombie run gameplay. Is it that I find the
No, no,
wrong
no.
thing?
It's you wouldn't. It's it literally it just sits on your iPhone or
Okay,
your
I think I
Android
pulled up the
device.
wrong one then.
Yeah, you did. There you go. That looks more like it.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the hell's going on there,
This
but
guy, no, you
basically,
can't play Zombies Run by driving in a car.
well, you
That's a
can if you're
dick
gonna cheat.
move.
That's true. But yeah. So at any rate, that's what I've been doing. Other than that,
Oh man.
Xenonauts. If you're an XCOM fan, this game is awesome. They totally improved and brought back the original Xenonauts feel, or I'm sorry, XCOM feel. Made a few improvements. It's an awesome game. You can get it on Steam. Tons of fun, turn-based squad stuff,
This is
real
an indie
time.
game?
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I
But
thought you were talking about a mod for XCOM.
no, no, this is like it's even got the 3D isometric view. Your guys are walking around, you land, you pop out the sides. It's a very cool game. I'm a huge XCOM fan, and that's it right there. Other than that, we are sitting currently at 107 degrees outside. That's 42 Celsius for my not US friends. So it is warm, and I am hiding. And while hiding, I've been dogfighting and racing, which of course is going to bring us into the actual point
Oh
of the
yeah,
show. But
let's get
first,
right in there. Quick note though, sort of a meta moment, if you will. We do have a. We're still sort of technically on hiatus. I decided to come back and do a show that is of lower quality in order to get one out there for you guys because I know everybody's been asking about it, and point nine is a really big deal. So I thought we'd get out here and talk about it. So don't expect one in 2 weeks. Hopefully, in less than a month or so, we'll be done with the basement and get the whole studio built and put together, and then I will have one less major thing to do in my spare time, so I'll be able to get back to making shows. Okay, so with that, let's go straight to our reactions from Point Nine. I'll throw up some video I took today of me racing rather poorly. Uh,
Watch for the guy spinning off the side and blowing up at the start here. It's
yeah,
great.
that's a fun one. And pew! He's gone.
yes.
I
And then he
forgot.
still gets ahead of you.
I forgot in this race that you could use the boost to accelerate quickly, and I had no idea where I was going. This is literally my very first time racing, so I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, go for the big blue thing here." Okay, and I was like, getting hit from behind. That's always fun. So let's just talk about racing since we've got it right here. So what do you guys think of
Yes.
the racing mode? Gray, what's your first opinion on it?
I love it. I haven't done a whole lot of it yet. I'm a little bit behind on the play because I had to download the entire patch twice at about
Ugh.
150 kbps max. Comcast, I'm pretty sure, was throttling me.
Ugh.
That's the only explanation I've got for it at this point.
Oh,
Well,
they
with
could
that
just
hat,
have
you are a
really
dirty
shitty
pirate.
service. That's another option. Oh,
Nothing else is that slow.
listen,
Just
listen.
this.
I just want to point out that I was gravitationally attracted to that building. All right, somebody gave that
Kind of
building
impressive.
mass, and attracted my ship. That's the only
Yeah.
explanation for how I
Oh,
kept
yeah.
gravitating right up to it.
There is a good bit of that in the racing that I've noticed, actually. It's
Yes.
very easy to snag yourself on something and then end up flying in really unpleasant little circles until you die.
This
For
is
me,
me
it's
not knowing where to go. Okay, so
It's those goddamned antennas.
yeah,
I actually race in a
Oh.
350R specifically.
Mhm.
I
You
don't have
jerk.
an M50. I love that thing. That
Yeah.
300 meters per second is just incredible.
It is pretty good.
I have to
And it
say
handles really well.
it's incredibly unfair to allow people to try and fly their Auroras against a 350R or an M50. It's just
know
not
what?
fair.
given how much easier it is to steer that Aurora, I mean, I think you might actually win. It's going to be a tortoise and hare moment, but you could probably pull it off.
Maybe.
Get enough guys who
Just
can't
can't
fly the
crash.
350R, yeah, you can't crash, and they will. You might catch up to them.
Yeah, I always thought
I
they
have
should have
I
different
have
leaderboards, and
managed.
I was really surprised they didn't start with different leaderboards for the different
I have
ships.
managed some completely crash-free runs in my 350 at this point. I'm
Mm,
down below a 130 lap,
nice.
without really pushing it too hard.
Yeah, it seems like
So
some of
So
the best are around 1 minute or 110, somewhere in that range, or the top.
102 is the lowest I've seen
Hmm.
posted so far on YouTube. Now, Gray, what's your control setup? What are you using to actually steer that ship?
Hotas
Okay,
X55.
awesome,
I
very awesome.
haven't done any dead zone adjusting yet, but I
Mm-hmm.
do have a completely custom to that XML. I mean, I
Okay.
had 2 days to make it while I was waiting for the patch to finish. So
What on that do you use a hat switch for strafing?
I actually have two little hat switches on my left thumb on the throttle. One of those switches controls left, right, up, and down, and the other one controls forward and back and has two currently unused functions that I'll play around with later.
Doesn't the X55 have a little joystick or something on there?
Uh,
Yeah, it does, but
it
don't.
does have a little joystick, but it bends your hand backward.
Oh,
Um,
that's no good.
to use that, you have to actually pull your left thumb back beyond where it should be, so you lose some of the grip on your throttle.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Now, this is coming from me, and my arms, legs, hands, thumbs, you name it, as Bridger has seen, turn completely backwards. Um, I am Gumby. So
Well, you have a
seeing
nickname now.
my hand have to go the wrong direction means that it's not really set up for use during combat. But
Gotcha.
the other two little hats work out just fine.
Excellent.
So it actually is really helpful too because it works in decouple as well as coupled, as long as you
Hmm.
bind it for both.
Yeah.
So it's great. You just end up flying off to the left, and I'm gonna miss that turn. A little bit of
It
left for
is
thrust
fun
and
to
all good.
see such and such dies when you're racing. Like that means
Oh,
they oh
wow,
oh
yeah.
oh there you go. That means they hit something so hard. Like cause there it is. This is like must be a lot of people's first race because I've seen people die all the time.
No one, no matter how long you've had this patch installed for, no one is an expert at this racing thing yet.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Um,
it does remind me in a lot of ways of the N64, last console I bought,
yeah.
uh, pod racing game.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I
Yes, I
remember
can
There
see
that.
is
that.
a distinct similarity between this and the little pod racers.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot of fun. It
Mm.
feels kind of like coming home, many, many years later. But
See, I had that same feeling, not about the pod racing though, but about the original SNES F-Zero. Like that was my first like sci-fi racing
uh,
game, and I sat down with this and I'm running the track and I'm thinking, if they made F-Zero today, it'd look a lot like this. It's very much nostalgic feeling for a game I'd never played. Or
yeah,
rather, for a game I have played with a game like this one I had not played yet. Hey, you got fifth.
Yay! One thing that bugs
Yeah.
me is that the match ends before you can finish it.
As soon as the first place guy gets and
Yeah.
second and third get in, yeah, that's
that
not
it's a
great.
little disappointing.
Yeah, yeah. Now
The other
my
thing,
take on racing.
oh man, you're in there, you're racing for like 3 minutes if you've got somebody really fast in there, and then all of a sudden you have to wait for 30 minutes for the stupid thing to load incorrectly again. Why can't you just play on a server like a Team Fortress 2 server where it just resets and you go again? That bugs me.
Because alpha is alpha.
I guess so.
It
I
is
thought we were
alpha.
clear on this.
Stop answering my questions with logical answers. I am emotional right now, damn it. So,
To be clear, the reason you're emotional is because of what we're seeing on the screen right now.
Yeah,
yeah. So,
I'm seeing some ramming.
yes, the racing mode to continue looks like it's going to have what's called a blitz mode, based on some of the stuff from in the game. It's not active yet,
Hmm.
but that appears to be one in which you get to use guns, a la
Yes.
Mario Kart mode, for all intents and purposes.
And I look forward to that. I look forward and see, and there's why you want your Super Hornet. You just bend everybody down as they try to get away,
No, no,
and
no.
then
You just
catch
wait
up
at the
with
starting line and for them to come around again.
them.
None shall pass.
Here comes eight guns. Enjoy. Yep. Now, Bridger, what control setup are you using when you're doing the dogfighting here and the racing?
I am currently using a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro because my basement costs a lot of money and I can't yet afford my X55. And I don't really have any place to put it. Right now, I'm just sort of sitting the Extreme 3D Pro in my lap on my and then just playing that way, and holding it there because that's the most comfortable
Playing with
position.
your stick in your lap.
That's exactly correct. So the long and short of it is, I've got the hat switch set up for straight up, down, left, right, which has come in handy, but I can't use it smoothly in combat yet because right now I have other important buttons around it. Like, I thought I could use it and hit like the other buttons around it as like control groups. Whoa, 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 whoa! I think that's when I lost a. No, I didn't. I just good shields. So I'm thinking about moving the up, down, left, right to the buttons on the side and changing the hat switch into the same controls I have for the buttons on the side. Basically, just reversing them so that all of my strafing is controlled by my left hand. On the buttons down on the side rather than the thumb at the top, because the thumb at the top has a lot of things to do.
Yeah,
it comes down
thumb at
to.
the top on the right is a lot of action if you're doing missiles and targeting. And
Specifically, it's the different
stuff.
weapon groups, because you can't. I mean, I could just put them all in the same weapon group, but I can't figure out how.
Yeah,
that's
the interface seems to have changed.
Yeah,
in the manual,
it's
it does, I think, walk through how to set that up. I haven't looked into it yet personally. Now
I've played with it. I've actually done it a couple of times. It is not quick.
intuitive. Yeah.
Once we can save that, I think we're going to be in much better shape. But right now, it's still round by round, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And if it's round by round, moving your weapons around one at a time from one place to another, it's not too easy to do.
Unless you macro it.
Yeah. You know what this does kind of remind me of is the kind of barrier to entry that the old games had, like Team Fortress for Quake World. You could not play it in any way successfully without actually writing a script or borrowing somebody else's. You have to write a script and know how to do bind and then the key and then the correct control, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to use all the special features of the mod. You just have the default keybinds in the menu, and that's what this felt like.
CIG has done a very good job of getting us past that point, though. At this point, we do have shield movement without problems. There are power profiles you can do by default. One of our guys was playing with them for weapons, shields, and maneuvering. And a reset, which is great. I haven't put in my key bindings yet, but apparently they're there.
Yeah, they are.
These are all in. The only thing we're really missing at this point is saving profiles for shields or for weapons and power.
It does appear that in the commands there are things that can do that are not working yet. So yeah, they're getting to that eventually.
Oh, yeah. They'll get there. I would imagine that's a pretty low priority compared to let's crank the speed up to double or more and see what happens.
So what I was doing.
Though.
What I was doing right there was actually attempting to fly in third person around asteroids, and I don't know, but it appeared that I would not black out. If you are not already experiencing blackout effects when you go into third person, you don't black out. So you can like dodge super effectively using just boost around asteroids and fly perfectly 10 meters away from them. Nobody can follow you if they're trying to aim. That might need to be fixed.
That sounds like a bug
that
report.
Should probably get fixed. Blackout was supposed to be in third and first, technically, right?
I noticed that when I had blackout effects and I went into third person, until they completely disappeared, if there were even a trace of them left, they would come back whenever I pulled a maneuver. I think that's what's happening. So maybe I got lucky the first time, but I think that's what's happening. But blackout effects, a lot more common in this version.
Yes. Actually, I've noticed that as well, since we're going so much faster and you can boost off the line by upping the throttle, hitting your afterburner. You will start to gray out if you move a little bit in any direction, up or down. It just seems like your red outs, your gray outs happen really frequently. But that said, I mean, it's kind of expected. It forces you to be either leave your G safe on, or it forces you to play a little more conservatively in the game itself.
So
but I actually have.
Go ahead.
A trick. Watching your replay here, I notice you start to spin, and you'll spin for a while. And then what I've learned with that one is, if
Nope.
you
I
are
hit and then I
spinning,
died. I didn't spin
well,
for a while.
there's true. Sometimes you'll spin for a while, and if you spin for a bit, like you slap your tail slaps like an
Yeah.
asteroid you're spinning around, wait for it to look clear and hit your throttle up and boost at the same time, and it will shoot you off in that vector, even though it may, cause.
Chairhead.
Yes, you
Aw.
got chairhead. Well done. And that will actually get you out of those spins where you're effectively sitting there at easy target for anyone who wants to shoot at you.
Right. I
Yeah.
did notice that after a fashion, especially because, well, I mean, it just when you're spinning, your maneuvering thrusters are constantly trying to slow you, and if you
Yes.
boost them, they're like, "Oh, okay, good idea, no problem then, sir."
But
Give him a shot of adrenaline.
Huntokar on Reddit, actually, he's the SIG developer that does their controls and their peripheral development. He actually made a post talking about the maneuvering thrusters. He said, we effectively took the thruster and cut it down to about 50% of what it was before. But when you boost them, all of your thrusters go to about 150% of what they were before. So your boost is actually giving you much stronger thrusters than you used to have, but on their own, they're a lot weaker than they used to be as
Which is
well.
why you can basically turn on a dime and stop instantly now.
Yes.
So let's talk targeting mechanics, because they definitely changed a lot of that, and that has got
Oh
everybody.
boy.
A lot of people are saying mouse and keyboard is a lot easier now than it was, from what I can
And
tell.
Yeah,
and then
I'm
you
gonna
hear
call
it's a lot
bullshit on
harder.
that one.
Yeah. The issue with the mouse and keyboard is that dead zone. I played around with it a little bit. I'm not a big mouse and keyboard guy. I've got my track IR. I've got my two sticks. I like that setup. It's a lot of fun. It is complicated, but I did play with it to see what it was like. And that giant dead zone in the center for, where your weapons will move, but you don't. When you're trying to shoot somebody with a mouse and keyboard and they're, say, strafing around you, like the circle strafe is a thing now. It's shocking. But it works really well. I was able in Vandal Swarm on like wave 7. They killed both of my wingmen in like 2 seconds. And then I'm sitting here and I'm literally just circle strafing around the Vandal, going up and down a little bit, trying to avoid the shots. And I managed to finish that wave. I died instantly the next wave, but separate problem. Yeah, so you can actually circle strafe.
And
And
you're using a two-stick setup?
yeah, so on mine, the offhand stick is vertical, lateral, and longitudinal thrust. So that's strafe forward, strafe back, strafe up, strafe down, strafe left, strafe right. And then
And
my
so
main
which
hand
one of those
stick.
is the twist?
So I actually have the twist right now on strafing left and strafing right.
Mm-hmm.
And then my pulling it to the left will accelerate me forward. I need to redo this a little bit, and then pushing it to the right will accelerate me backwards, and then pushing it forward, which I'm going to move to my actual thrust. That one actually causes me to go down, like that's the vertical down, and then pulling back is vertical up. So I'm going to be doing that a little bit. I like that more than having the push button thrust up, thrust down, because you end up with a, that's what we're looking for here. When you're doing, people complain right now this they suddenly stop in space when they start to strafe because, well, basically the maneuvering thrusters are overdriving the main thruster and IFCS kicks in and it moves them to the side only after a while. Whereas if you're actually like twisting the stick to get one direction, pushing forward for another, and going a little bit to the right, you actually can get that diagonal vector you're looking for. So I found that with that maneuver, there's a bug I've encountered that's driving me up the wall. In multiplayer, my control schemes don't work as well as they should, and I actually have not had the ability to fire my flares or chafe. So what I've had to do to not be killed instantly is circle strafe around, and then when I see one, two, or three missile locks on me, look for somebody near me and just boost at them while strafing. And usually I can evade the missile. The other bug I encountered was missiles don't look like missiles on my screen unless I've fired them. They
They
look
look like
like,
little Hello Kitty dolls.
no, I wish. It's a weird like square that has a little distortion, and then as they come at me, the square like replicates, kind of like when you got a Windows bug when it can't draw a screen anymore. So I'm like, what the fuck is that going around? So yeah, that's that. So I've really been enjoying it, but the targeting, you're absolutely right, is rough because you've got to do, it's like the old Wing Commander or X-Wing thing where you get maybe one or two good volleys into a guy and then you're done. because they moved off, their shields recharge, just come back and do it again. It's a lot harder than it was.
It definitely doesn't feel like that concept of the World War II dogfight where you get on somebody's tail and you can stay there. It's just so easy for them to turn on a dime and speed off in a direction that you can't follow, or just turn to face you. Now, I wanted to point out something that I spotted today that might be helpful to you and maybe a lot of other people. This is basically somebody who said, well, it's been pointed out that if you're going forward at maximum speed, right, and you hit your binary strafe left and strafe right controls, what that tells your IFCS is, I want to go 100% speed to the left. And so it stops you from going forward. It literally slows you down. It doesn't like, it doesn't think, oh, he wants to add a little bit of left thrust to him already going forward. And somebody said they figured out the way around that. And it's this bit of code here that I can link to this in the show notes. Instead of using the V throttle bind, which will allow you to have your throttle on your throttle, actual hardware throttle, or like on a little actually, this only works on a hardware throttle. I'll explain why it doesn't work on my Logitech Extreme 3D Pro in a second. But so you have your throttle pushing you either at 0 or at 100. What he's saying is you change it to V strafe longitudinal, being controlled by your throttle itself. So if it's in the middle, it's 0. If you pull back, you're reverse throttle, and if you push forward, you're 100% forward throttle. Then when you try to strafe, your IFCS gets 2 inputs, forward and left, and it'll send you on that sort of diagonal that you're looking for, instead of slowing down your vertical to send you 100% left. I haven't been able to try this because my Extreme 3D Pro is treated by the system, the throttle that's on it is treated as a slider for some reason. I don't know why.
Interesting.
But instead of being shown as JS1_throttle and then the axis, it's not treated as an axis. It says slider 1. So I'm not sure why exactly that is, but it's not an axis according to the control system. So I was not able to do this, but it does sound like something that might be useful to people. I almost certainly want to try this when I get a throttle myself.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to play with that one. That's an interesting option because it does give you the ability to immediately have reverse.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other nice thing, one maneuver I found is really fun, is you're flying at somebody in that jousting position, which is happening a lot more with this build because of the speeds. Hit decouple, pull back, and literally flip around, and then you have 2 options. You can couple again, at which point you'll start to black out, but you will start punching towards them, or leave it to couple, just shoot backwards and strafe left, right, up, down to kind of move yourself around out of their shooting cone. But with that option, with the V-strafe longitudinal, if you pull back on your stick or you pull back on your throttle, you would actually accelerate backwards if you're not already at top speed, so you could actually get away a little faster and still maintain a shooting presence. But here's been my biggest problem with the new 6 Degrees of Freedom commands. I have not yet in Arena Commander been shot down and killed. I have, however, hit repeatedly every piece of debris on the field over and over and over again. So it's been fun.
Oh no! You know what I forgot to do? All right, we're gonna have to break into this. The UEE would like to insert an ad from Original Systems into this program. Original Systems would like to acknowledge that we are aware of the bug which has caused the #1 rank on Arena Commander leaderboard to be listed as asteroid_null. This is actually just a reflection of the number of people who are crashing into asteroids due to the speed changes in the most recent patch. We're coding a fix so this doesn't appear on the scoreboard anymore because it might be a while before it naturally leaves the top 10. Thank you. We now return you to your regularly scheduled Tales of Citizens. That's what I spent like 5 minutes trying to put together and then completely forgot to put it at the beginning of the show. All right. But now it's in there. Because, yes, asteroids and collisions with other players seem to be the most deadly things in the .9 patch. Screw the Omninsky lasers and the missiles. It's collision damage.
Well, I also haven't hit another player yet. Since I've got strafe commands and the new boosting with strafe, I've always managed to just miss.
I have... after a while, after fashion, I got better at that. These videos don't attest to the fact that I got better at that. But there is still times where I'm like playing chicken at somebody right straight in front of me, and then we both decide to strafe up juke to left. Get a juke one direction, and we both hit each other. I was like, it's okay, I'll just dodge at the last second. Oh, he dodged into me. What a fucker. Like, it's all his fault, clearly. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and also on the subject of the new commands, they have massively made weapon and power balancing easier. Like it is a much faster process now to rebalance your shields, your weapons, etc., and just get what you're looking for on that. Like it used to
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
hit numpad 5 like 12
Mm-hmm.
times, and now it's, you set it up and hit 2. Oh, look, all my shields are balanced.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that a lot more. I plan to use like voice attack for those kinds of commands most of the time. But the other thing is, and I don't know if I'm the only one that does this, in Murray Cup racing, if you're not
Hmm.
like just pushing two and holding, or no, three, it's three, because that gives you your maneuvering thrusters all the power.
Ah, yes.
You should always do that in Murray Cup racing, because you are just wasting your energy on your guns and shields. Hopefully wasting your energy on the shields.
Yeah, that is, well, yeah, you don't want to hit anything, but honestly, if you do scrape something and you don't have shields up, it's gonna hurt, and you will scrape a lot of things. That seems to,
Yes.
especially in the 350R. The M50, from what I gather, is a much better ship to maneuver in, but the top speed isn't as high. But I suspect that at lower speeds, the 350 and the M50 probably maneuver about the same. It's just the 350 is going a lot faster by the time it gets to trying to dodge out of the way. Oh, that's true, Ben. They do not
Wait,
help
shields
against
don't
collision
block
damage.
any collision damage? Why
That's
do they
true.
flare like
They
they help? Like they help
they
me?
slow velocity. If you're hit by a meteor that's moving slowly already, it'll slow it to
Mm.
the point where it depletes some of your shields and you seem to take less damage. At least this has been my experience with it.
So it's a buffer
But
zone.
high speeds, you're screwed.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Well, okay, maybe not. Um, Yeah, but overall, I mean, I'm looking forward to a couple of things. One, the private matches. I know they're down right now because there's a lot of demand for them, but those are pretty awesome. I do have a question though, or a problem with it. What is up with the friend codes? I thought Nintendo tried this and it went horribly.
I mean, this is how they're dealing with private servers to start. They have to do something.
That's true.
Uh,
And password protecting your a lobby and that kind of thing.
and when you're looking for a slightly half-assed, easy-to-implement solution, look no further than Nintendo.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I
So
mean,
yeah,
in reality, it works for what it is, but they had such problems implementing the private servers in the first place. Now we're just to a point where you're trying to join people's games.
very
It could be
true.
worse.
Very true. Now, I do have a little bit of feedback actually for the FPS module when it comes out. We don't even have an FPS module yet, but I have feedback for it because they put track IR support in the version 0.9, which I know there was a YouTuber out there who was talking about track IR and saying it wasn't in, so now the rumors are abounding. It's in, it's not, it's in, it's not. Rest assured, track IR is in. Uh,
Yeah, I've had
I
multiple
got a link.
confirmation about that.
Yeah, I got a link to a 2 Degrees of Freedom profile, which was nice. I think Vin in our Twitch
Yeah.
service here linked it in. It makes it a lot easier. But before I had that, I was playing with it just as is, and you can actually peek around a corner in your hangar. So I was, if I were in I know they did at the Gamescom, they had that video where the guy's got his pistol, peeks around the corner, sees the rifleman running in, firing all kinds of shots, and then runs around and starts shooting. Uh, as is with their control scheme, that's available. You can actually do a little looking around the corner. Hopefully, there'll be an option to do that with a mouse button or a keyboard button as well, so you can just lean to one side and hope you don't get headshot.
I do have to say this though, lean left and lean right are the cause of the spinning bugs. I
The
have in
cause,
all of my XML disable lean left and lean right completely
What do you mean spinning
because
bugs?
yeah.
there's a spinning bug where if you're in your hangar and you have a joystick plugged in along with a keyboard and
Ah.
mouse,
Oh.
you will spin like a top, and there's no way to stop it. Apparently, this is the lean left and lean right commands effect on the game sometimes.
Interesting.
So I actually got one of the SIG developers sent a message over saying, hey, put this in your XML and see if it works. And lo and behold, as long as I put that in, life is pretty good.
Well, that's pretty
But
awesome.
I assume they're going to have to fix that if they haven't already. I'm still paranoid about letting it sit there without going into spin mode. They will have to make sure that's fixed before you're actually using it on the ground.
So
Yeah.
I was really hopeful that we would get some kind of in-game control adjustments because damn, trying to figure out this
Yes.
XML is a huge pain, and it's worse because I don't have any cool programming software for my crappy Extreme 3D Pro. So I was trying to do some kind of sensitivity curve in the XML and trying to figure out what works and what didn't work, and that wouldn't even be so bad, except that I didn't put this on my SSD because I did not realize it would take literally 5 minutes to load into the game, and then another 5 minutes to load into a match, and then have that match get canceled and go back to the hangar. Oh my god, I
Mm.
spent all day trying to play this game. I must have played at least 6 matches. It was not. Oh, it's still very much alpha, and that's very painful.
Not the
So I don't know if you guys have had more luck than me with that.
I I've had really poor issues with the matchmaking. Usually it seems like the servers are down or the one I dogfight I did last night, I loaded in and it said you were positioned 29 of 1 in the queue. And then after that, I got into a match and I sat there for about 10 minutes waiting for players, and then it populated in. But I had signed up for a squad battle, and I got moved into a battle royale.
I sign up for Murray
So
Cup racing, and I always get put into a squadron battle.
Oh no.
I'm all like, but I
so
took all my guns off. This isn't what?
They knew, Bridger. They knew.
You know what that is?
yes,
That's the dynamic universe. Like I was on my way to the racetrack, and instead I had an
Yeah, yeah.
encounter in space. I had a PvP encounter.
that's one thing I was thinking about actually. If you got an opponent and you're going through the whole circuit for the racing, like the actual real circuit in the PU versus Arena Commander, could you in fact, like, say, hire a pirate group to ambush the person carrying that M50, try and knock them out before they even get there?
It's like it's like any racing
Technically
movie.
could, really. I mean, whatever's carrying the M50 more than
Yeah,
likely.
the Origin or whatever other ship they picked up for it.
So
Yeah,
let's
that
They
would be
jump. Yeah.
that would be awesome.
let's talk about the changes to the actual combat then so far that
Hmm.
you guys have witnessed, because some of the major
Yes.
changes they made included the class 1 guns no longer are gimbaled, but they
Hmm.
do have an automatic convergence vector at the moment because they
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have a way to allow you to set that. So until they do, your guns will magically converge at the correct distance, apparently. That's how I understand that. But they
yeah,
will no longer automatically turret, so you have to aim with them sort of perfectly, which means
yep.
the two side lasers on the 300i
Hmm.
and those are class 1s, and I think the nose guns on the Hornet, the regular Hornet, are class 1s.
That
Someone
depends.
was. They are. Class 1 knows unless you put a turret on it.
Exactly. You can drop a
Oh,
cannon
that's
turret
right.
down there
It's
and
a
put two
it's
guns
a
on
it's
it.
a class 2 mount, but a class 1 gun. So
Hmm.
Yep.
you can mount a class 2 gun on there, but I'm pretty sure the mounts on the 300i are just permanently class 1. So as a
The
result,
Aurora as well. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure the front fins on the Aurora there are both class 1s.
yeah. The Aurora has class ones. I thought the 300i had two class ones and one class two.
yep, the
Class 2 is the
300i's nose
nose.
cannon is a class 2,
Yeah.
and what that all comes down to is you combine that with the fact that their radius for the class 1s is now way smaller,
Yeah.
and it moves much faster because you have to
Yes.
aim for this moving lead
Yeah.
indicator that is way
Hmm.
way harder to keep track of than even the ships now that they're
Yes.
moving faster, and that makes it much harder to kill anything.
Yeah, it does. It takes me right back to, like I said, X-Wing or TIE Fighter, where yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
or the original Wing Commander, where you got to line up and you got to be perfect on your shot, or you're not going to get it. And unfortunately, I don't know that that was great gameplay. I mean, it's what we had at the time.
But those
I think
ships also responded perfectly. We've got a physics simulation
yes,
now that has real significant delays in
yes,
how fast your ship moves. I mean, the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games and the Wing Commander games, they all acted like airplanes. You pulled the stick moves the ailerons, and the space wind turns your ship all
Yes.
instantly.
But this is the testing process.
Yes.
They
True.
went all the way in one direction, and we had nothing but gimbals on everything.
Yes.
And there were mass complaints. People said it sucked. People said it was easy mode. People said they could aim blind using their butt. I mean, there were all kinds of wonderful complaints about it.
Yes. And
Now
once
we
you
get to see what happens with Class 1s and Elite Indicator. Because I don't think the Lead Indicator is going away. That
It's
was a
not.
brilliant move.
Well, and the other thing to remember is the lead indicator is not perfect. That line that comes out from your ship, it could be a long line, it could be a short line. If it's a short line, you may actually have to aim behind the lead indicator to get your shot in. If it's a long line, you may have to put your shot out ahead of it somewhere. You've got to remember that when you're shooting at the lead indicator. And a lot of times when you're firing, these shots are gonna miss. That's why you get so many rounds. And that's one interesting thing, because we have weapons groups. So a lot of people are putting, say, the Badger repeaters in weapons group 1. You get a lot of shots with that, and you can kind of spray out there and see what happens. But you want to wait with your bigger guns like the Omninsky 4s until you're in close and you're kind of lined up dead on, because that's like the death blow shot, right? I mean, that's the 600 damage in one hit with both those firing at once.
I see some people in the YouTube chat talking about I think the Track IR, saying that it's weird that the HUD doesn't move with you, and I think somebody mentioned that's the translational effects of Track IR. If you turn those off, it works fine. And I know that that's something that they just need to improve in the future. The Track IR is brand new and just barely in there. But yeah,
awesome.
to respond, I feel like, we definitely went to another extreme, because before it was probably too easy to stay on target and too easy to hit enemy ships. But now it definitely feels too hard for me.
It is much
what
harder.
What Vin is saying here, validly, the lead indicator can't account for the pilot's dynamic action.
Yes.
Which makes it, if you're strafing around and using your afterburner to do those strafe maneuvers, it's incredibly hard to hit someone. And in order to hit someone who's doing that, you have to be incredibly still. So, like, in order to hit somebody, you have to make yourself super vulnerable. It's a nightmare. So that's why the only kills come from asteroids and collisions.
That's not true, though. If you know that a person is doing that strafing maneuvering, you know what you have to do? You have to match them.
Yep, and that becomes a problem because, if you don't have an analog input on your strafe, you're all or nothing, and you're going to bounce around kind of like a wall banging thing, which can be hard to hit.
Target speed.
Yes, and I'm not sure, is that working? But last night there was a question about whether or not that was working or not.
I believe that's implemented.
Vin said it may have been broken in this patch. He was not able to get it to work, but it might not be for everybody.
Yet.
I've hit it and it seems to respond, but my thrust never changes. So I've had the same issue where I think it's not quite working.
I think part of what we're seeing here is that in a 6 Degrees of Freedom game, one that actually works as advertised, unless you have 6 axes, you're just going to be at a disadvantage, a really significant disadvantage, because as you point out, Callie, that all or nothing strafe doesn't let you aim. It only lets you dodge.
Especially if I'm, because I'm constantly correcting when I'm fighting. I've got my yaw on the stick, and I'm going to move that just a little bit, and I might have my strafe all the way over, and that lets me kind of pan across something slowly. Whereas if I want to do like a little bit of strafe and a little bit of nose, I might spin faster as someone comes around me. I'm not moving in a really predictable arc because I'm constantly adjusting both those parameters to keep myself on target. It's not great right now. I mean, I miss a lot more than I hit, like everybody else, but I can at least get a couple volleys in, and I usually wait till I'm about 300 meters before I will fire like an Omninsky 4, or for that matter, a missile. Because there's too often you can get a flare off. If we're facing each other and I fire that missile and it's 300 meters away, you may not have time to hit that button before it hits you.
That's the only time I use missiles, is when I'm really close, because they might not react fast enough.
It's also pretty telling that that's where people are using the Omniskys now. Previously, that was the range of, like, what was that, blast shotgun cannon thing?
The Mantis?
There was little proton gun or something.
Oh, the neuron gun.
Yeah, the neutron
Yeah,
gun. There we go.
yeah.
Yeah, the neutron gun was previously that range. Because, oh yeah, you'll hit him, it'll be fine.
Hmm.
Now you're putting your lasers on target there rather than 1,400 meters out.
Yes. And at 1,400 meters, I rarely hit anything these days, which
No.
is fine. I wait till about
I can hit
700
them if
before
they're
I really
going in a
put in.
straight line away from
Yeah.
me.
If the lead
I'll tap
indicators
people with a
have,
bulldog from that range, but that's because
yeah,
there's 700 shots out there.
yeah. And so you can kind of put a cloud of shots. Your bullet stream becomes more of a puddle.
So what I think is happening right now, though, what concerns me a little bit is that it feels like if I'm in a one-on-one, because I got in a couple games where it's just me and one other guy, like nobody else loaded in, and it consisted of us screaming at each other, just barely missing, hitting maybe one shot on the shield, and then spinning around and doing it again. And neither of us could hit each other, and neither of us was doing anything different. It was
Yeah.
not fun.
Yeah.
That's I mentioned it, but that's the increased jousting we're seeing. Like in the video you're put up here, you're seeing a lot of that as well,
Hmm.
where you're jousting across with this guy, you're turning around. If you were able to, ouch.
Ooh,
If you were
that's
able
dumb.
to strafe around, you could pass each other. Remember I talked earlier, hit the decouple, turn around, recouple, or don't, but then begin strafing. Get the IFCS to think you just want to go left before you couple again, and you will stop that joust because you're not going to be coming around him at an arc.
Yeah.
So that's one way to get out of it. There's no more turreting though, I've noticed. Like I don't see many people
Yeah.
stopping dead in space or going slow and just spinning around, which is
Well,
nice.
'cause
I prefer that.
everybody now knows, hey, if I can put all of my guns when 1 and 2 line up to each other, I'm gonna do it.
That's true. Now my
It went
hope
from being
is
let's point at the ship and fire, it doesn't matter what they're doing, to if those two boxes line up, it's Bohica time.
yes, maneuvering is much more important, as is positioning. I mean, I talk about if you can come in behind somebody who doesn't know you're there and get a good alpha hit in, like fire a bunch of your repeaters, then put in your Omninskis, or get close to them, put the missile out at the same time, you may alpha strike them to death. And that might be when they actually put in, I don't think it's in yet, they actually put in the stealth technology, the sensors that will keep you quiet in that. If someone doesn't know you're there, you may get to alpha like that with, say, a Hornet Ghost. But we'll have to
Yeah.
find out when we get there.
I mean, this system in play now makes detection mechanics much, much more important.
Hmm.
It's not just line up and fire, it's if somebody's taking evasive maneuvers, it matters. Genuinely, it really matters.
Hmm. Yeah, I overall I'm much more pleased with 0.9 and the patch they just released than I was with the Arena Commander releases up to this point. I think they overdid it on the new aiming mechanics a little bit, and I think if they give every single mount the ability to gimbal like 7 or 5 degrees versus the 25 degrees or so they had
Yeah,
before.
I kind of agree. I feel like class ones should be very minimal gimbaling, and then class 2 mounts are actually designed like the gun itself gimbals a little bit, like you're talking about 5 or 7 degrees of auto aim, and then the class 2 gives you a much wider auto aim. I still like the idea of having to follow the lead indicators, as long as
Hmm.
we have a slightly wider area with which to find that diamond,
Yes,
because right now it's just so hard
that's absolutely true.
and
Now
so easy to dodge and stuff with the strafe. Like, they added 2 things. One, they made it more difficult to actually stay on target, and 2, they made it easier to dodge and maneuver
yes.
yourself around. So both of those things combined has made it just very difficult to get kills in. And I mean, I played a match where it was just me and one other guy in Capture the Core, and we both grabbed each other's cores and for 5 minutes flew around trying to hit each other, and nothing happened. And then
Oh.
finally he flew into an asteroid. I like to claim that I had planned that all along, but I didn't. He was in an M50, so I was never catching him. And then when he did try to, he just flew by me at like 1,000 meters in a second, and just couldn't, just
And
nothing.
you watch his bullets fly by you because he couldn't keep a bead on you going at that
Yes,
speed.
exactly. So then, once he finally killed himself on an asteroid, it's like, aha, I can go capture this core now. But I was like in the middle of the map, so I turned around and punched it, in my 300i back to my core. And I captured my core, and literally the instant I captured the core, I heard like a thud and my ship jarred and it said, "Your core has been taken." Like he almost caught me from his area of the map. I was halfway. He caught up to me and almost stole my core out from under me while I was capturing it. That was a scary moment. Also, I
That's
died
funny.
again there. Ow.
Well, I think you'll do that a lot. We all will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, other changes are kind of interesting. My prediction is the Class 1 size 5 guns on these fighters, like the Avenger or the 2 on the Scythe, they
Yeah.
are going to hurt. I mean, we've already seen what like the smaller guns like the Amninsky 4s will do. I think that when we get to the size 5 guns on these single seaters, it's going to be like the kind of death knell. I don't think in Vandal Swarm that we've yet really seen what size 5s can do on the AI Vandals.
True.
But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see.
But
What
the
now
thing
the
is,
other thing.
I got the impression that size 5s were going to be really slow firing, but maybe not.
Well, and they may be slow firing. I mean, I believe they should be. They should be like the big hard hitters. But you look at War Thunder as an example. When you get those planes with like the 75 millimeter cannons, the mini tank cannons on them, when they come in at a bomber or they get a shot on a fighter, it's just a one hit. That's all she wrote. So we'll see if they balance that in a similar way here, or if it's just going to be if your shields are down, it's as if you were hit by a missile, or if it's going to be 3/4 of your health, or it just shears away everything. Hope they didn't hit near your cockpit.
All right.
Hope they
I
didn't
I
hit
have to
near
get
your
this
cockpit.
AeroView Chrome theme now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just got the Rebel in York Dark one. It is beautiful. Props to this guy, I have to say.
Well, I'm glad I could keep my own conversation up with myself while you guys are busy
Oh,
downloading
no,
your
no,
Chrome
no.
themes.
Ooh,
I'm
there we go.
teasing. I'm
AeroView
teasing.
hangers. All right, so there's
The
a lot
hangers,
of
oh my god.
yeah, the hangers are pretty cool looking. I
Yeah.
still like lag a lot. I was hoping that they would have optimized them a little more. It's like,
Oh,
it's a 200 by 300 foot room, guys. There's not a lot of stuff in it. How are we going to do any FPS mechanics if the room itself drops us down to 40 FPS?
now let me ask you: were you using any console commands to improve your frame rate in the last patch?
I
Because
wasn't doing anything like that, no.
okay, I was for some things, especially for my SLI, and it turns out that you can still do console commands even though they have them disabled. I'll have to see and find the instructions, but basically you can re-enable the console commands by making an update to the system.cfg, which will re-enable the console. Uh, and then you can type in whatever you need, or you can add in the earlier commands like r multi GPU equals 2, etc. Uh, if you don't, then if you're running SLI, the easy fix is to simply make it a window instead of full screen, because then that disables SLI for the game window. You won't see those, I don't know, I want to call it my bad acid trip rainbow flashes to the screen of various geometries. It's rough.
All right,
Is the
let's
name of
compare bugs. My bug involves the window shrinking and taking on the dimensions of my second monitor, except it displays on my main monitor and then the cursor doesn't line up. Oh, it's so silly.
it is pretty funny.
And then I have to put it in a window to avoid that. That's the workaround. There you go.
Mine is an LCD, an LSD trip, basically, directly on there. If I had any kind of seizure, I would have it watching this.
Fair enough.
If I had any kind of seizure, I would have it watching. It's like the most interesting man in the world there. I don't always have a seizure, but when I
When I
do, it's
do.
playing Star Citizen.
See, they should put that on the box right there. The Cali Thulu. I don't usually have a seizure, but when I do, it's from this game.
I'm sure that would sell another 100 copies by default.
That probably would.
So let's see. Any other final thoughts here on any of the major changes?
Well, let's see. I think we covered Six Degrees of Freedom is awesome. We are disappointed that the in-game controls aren't in yet. Time to kill is up. New hangars are impressive.
So
Ships are
let's
faster.
say, what do you think is the biggest improvement here out of all the different things we've been talking about? What's the biggest and most substantial and valuable that they're going to definitely need to hold on to?
6 degrees of freedom. The
Yeah.
maneuvering available now is worlds better than it was. I'm really impressed with the way they've implemented their flight model and the IFCS. So that's it.
Okay, what about
It it
go ahead, Greg.
feels like the right kind of game now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now the racing module, also a good call. I was really impressed. I didn't think it'd be fun. It really, really is.
And especially the M50 reveal commercial. That was
Oh yeah, that was
amazing.
awesome. They really captured his personality in a big way from Top Gear. I was
An
really
orgy of
impressed.
mind-bending numbers.
See, if Richard, the guy you just shot up on the video right there, if he had boosted, he could have avoided being shot up by you again.
Yeah, no, there were plenty of times when I got kills. I'm like, yeah, I only got a kill because this guy's not moving much. That's pretty clear.
Yeah, and I do agree with Vin. The uh, over on Twitch, the fights do feel much more strategic now
Hmm.
because the moment you
Maneuvering.
screw up, you die. But
Yeah,
until that point, you have a really good chance.
yeah. Yeah, maneuvering, positioning, those are now much more critical than they were, where you could literally just stop in space and track a guy.
And can you
So
guys imagine this on an instance three times this size? You
I look
wanted to
it's
forward
get
to
got to
it.
be
away.
3 times this size because I run into the damn side of the instance every 10 seconds now with the speed
Yes,
changes.
that's
Like, they have to double the
Hey,
size.
they warned us that that would be the case.
yes, they
They're like,
did,
you
and everyone
know,
demanded it.
Now your immersion
everyone
is going to be
demanded it.
destroyed by these invisible boxes.
Well,
Be
it
careful
is,
what
of
you wish
course,
for
a
because you might just
simulation.
slam into an invisible wall and then fall into the planet.
And you do. Now, yeah, I still have to get used to like coupling, decoupling. I used to run it mostly decoupled. Now I run it mostly in the coupled mode, and I decouple only to reorient and then boost back. So that's the other thing too. Fuel. Fuel will be an interesting add. They don't have it in quite
Yes.
yet. There's no penalty to constant boosting.
It's
I'm
it's
really
it's
curious.
possible that boosting the amount of sort of ability we have to just turn on a dime, if that's I feel like the maximum needs to be reduced though. I feel like they went a little too high with it, but
Hmm.
I think if they also limit the amount of it, that will help as well.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that.
Because really,
So
the
if they took
boosting,
it,
I think, is what causes the jousts to be so prevalent. If everybody can just
yes.
turn around and instantly get the guy off their tail by simply turning on a dime and being going in another direction, like you need to tweak it. If the goal is World War II, it definitely doesn't feel like World War II right now. You can't stay on
Yeah,
Well,
somebody's
it's
tail.
well, I
but
would
World
say
War II, it wasn't easy to stay on somebody's tail either.
no. You went
No,
through years of
Let's
training.
be clear. Saying World War II does not mean that it was easy.
No.
The
It,
situation is now there's just a lot more strife.
well, that's because
yes.
the Germans were using a mouse and keyboard to fly their.
Oh, right, right.
But that was only on the Panzers and the Tigers, let's be clear.
And it was more effective there.
Nerf Red Baron OP.
There you go. So biggest thing, what do you think they need to what's the difference between point 0.9 and 1.0? What does they still need here?
Well, I really look forward to the remainder of the ships. I mean, that's that
Yeah,
and the aiming
multi-crew. Oh my
improvements.
god.
The
The
Avengers
multi-crew,
supposed to be
yeah.
in for 1.0?
Yeah, the Avengers supposed to be for
Yep.
1.0. I have not heard. They're supposed to have every single seater, but I wasn't sure if they were making an exception for a couple of them, like the Scythe, the
Hmm.
Xian,
But wasn't
Cartual.
1.0 also multi-crew? Was that the
No,
talk?
2.0 is
That
going to be
was two.
multi-crew.
Oh, it's
So
two.
the
Okay.
multi-crew beta will start as soon as they get into like 1.1, I think. I could
Yeah,
be
I
wrong.
believe
Gotcha.
anything above 1.0 is going to start putting in those things. In addition, 2.0 is supposed to be all of the variants for all the single seaters should be in there. So I'll finally be able to get
Yeah.
to fly my 325.
Hey, I'm looking forward to flying that Cartual. And of course,
Wow.
for our video, we do have a surprise that we will reveal once it's back in the game, so you guys can have some fun with that. Richard, we
So
talked about this.
what?
I said we talked about that earlier. I like the foreshadow.
Surprise. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing. Yes,
Yes.
it's good. So, yeah, I think actually one of the big things they need in order to call this the 1.0 of the alpha which I guess is kind of a contradiction of terms. But I think the biggest thing that they need is an in-game control customization. I think that's really missing.
Oh God, yes.
Specifically, being able to adjust the sensitivity curve on your joystick would be super useful, because doing it on the outside and then going back in and then changing things is a big pain, especially when you don't actually have any software that'll do that for you. But I feel like having it in game and having everybody using the same thing, letting them share, control systems and stuff, that would be really nice.
Yes.
Also, it would help me know what the hell V_verisimilitude means, or some other nonsense.
V verisimilitude. Nice.
I don't think that's actually in there, though.
No, it's not.
I would like
technology in Age of Empires 3.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I would think of is that once they finally get this aiming mechanic dialed in, that's when they could call it 1.0. Now, mind you, I think that the aiming mechanic, when they do dial it in, is going to be the one that no one likes. Like, it's going to have to piss everybody off to be a good one.
Yeah, because if any
Ultimately,
one group is happy, the other group's going to scream bloody murder. But if everybody's upset, I can't really hit anything unless I do this.
Big question for their flight model, and this is a really important one at this point, is how much do they want reverse and side to side to stack up to your rear thrusters?
Yeah, because right now they're just as strong, if not stronger.
Now, it doesn't feel like there's a big difference.
Well, then you get ships. You get ships like the Constellation, where the nacelles actually will move to give you better vertical lateral thrust.
And the Freelancer.
Yes, or the Xi'an Cartual is supposed to be able to really move.
But the question does stand. Those ships have that rotation. That's totally valid. They should. They're actually designed that way.
Yes.
The 350R should not move as fast, or should not accelerate as quickly backwards as it does forward.
True.
Let it hit the same top speed, but being able to accelerate and decelerate the same with the big engines versus the little ones feels a little off.
It does. I agree. Maneuvering thrusters, Elite has the same problem right now. The maneuvering thrusters are very strong compared to the primary thrusters.
I think the reason for that, though,
to be a point.
The problem is, because they're doing a physics simulation, right? They're trying to respond to people saying, I keep overcorrecting with my joystick because it takes the lag between telling the thrusters, hey, turn on and go in this direction to make me aim this way to try and catch this guy, and then the thrusters actually maneuvering and then thrusting and accelerating you fast enough for you to notice. That lag is a problem, but if they solve it by, okay, we'll just add thrust to these so they accelerate much more quickly and they respond much faster, now they can, stop you on a dime just as fast as your main thrusters. So now you've got a weird duality there that if you go one way, it fucks up the other situation that you're trying to fix.
Now, Vin does bring up a valid question here, too. Is it that the main thrusters are not supposed to be better, they're just supposed to be more efficient? And if that's the case, it's got to be a big fuel mechanic that's going to come down like a hammer, or people will think it doesn't matter.
At which point your Hornet pilots will be not strafing anymore.
Yeah, so it's just going to be a question of how much do they make those maneuvering thruster efficiencies, versus the main engine become a major part of the gameplay? How much does fuel begin to matter? Which, that's a whole different argument. I love the idea of massively restricted fuel, but that's different time, another hour here. But if it's supposed to be, the main ones in the back are much more powerful, it's not about efficiency.
The problem with the fuel as a restriction is it punishes players for playing well to some degree, because if they put a little fuel in there, people who are going to run out of fuel really quick, and then what? They just sit in space waiting for a refuel? What happens? Or they just respawn? They kill themselves? But if somebody plays well, they run out of fuel because they've lasted so long. Even if they play as efficiently as they can, they're out of fuel now. What happens? So that's a real mechanic they have to worry about in Arena Commander specifically, because it's a respawn game, because it's a game where you just are expected to die and respawn, but the people who do well and never die, Those guys. By the way, do you guys notice that I'm somehow controlling the stick with my mind in this one? Like my hands aren't
Yes.
holding
yeah.
the joystick. I don't know how that happened, but they're just like force holding. So
Yep.
so that's really the limitation on the fuel restriction. The same with the ammunition restriction. I mean,
Yeah.
if you run out of missiles, it's because you never died. But if
Yeah.
you also limit the number of lives people have and the number of times, but if you allow people to refuel, maybe like each
Well,
squadron has a base on the thing and you fly over to it and stop for 10 seconds and then you can refuel and rearm automatically, like a pit stop.
well, they have the landing pads. That'd be a good spot for it.
Yeah, if they require people to land, nobody's refueling. They're flying 100 miles an hour into that landing pad in order to refuel.
Well, and it could be that you end up doing a game in Arena Commander that is like two bases in an asteroid field where both sides have their thing they take off from. They fly at each other. You come around.
Tribes
And do a
2.
sortie.
We're rebuilding Tribes 2.
There you go. Yeah. Now you mentioned
Tribes Ascend.
You can
you
fly
mentioned
into the
fuel
bases.
balance. You mentioned the fuel balance mechanic or balancing the fuel mechanic. War Thunder had a problem with that. The early Japanese jets had unlimited fuel in the arcade mode. Fuel just didn't matter. And then when in arcade mode they added fuel later. This is a long time ago. Suddenly the strongest jet in the game became the weakest because you could burn 2 minutes of fuel. That's all it had. Because historically, that's all it had.
How did it get in the air? It takes
Well,
2 minutes to get up to like 2,000 feet.
It literally existed. It was based on a German design. It literally existed to take off, fly up, hit a bomber, and then coast back down to land without fuel. Fly.
Wow.
Yep.
Was it-
Now,
So it was
that said,
more like a rocket ship
It
than
was literally
than
a rocket
jet.
with a pilot.
It was an interceptor in its
Yeah.
purest form. You got one shot at that bomber, and if you missed, you
Oh,
just
well.
drifted back down to the hopefully still existent landing pad.
Yeah, or try
and a
bomb.
very,
Either
very
way.
angry
That too.
supervisor who's now like sitting in rubble going, "You missed the bomber!"
Yeah. Given that the landing gear was composed of sleds, I'm pretty sure they didn't expect you to actually come back. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the way- the way
wheels
they-
are too expensive for you, buddy.
Yeah. So the way they balanced it in War Thunder was tough shit. That's the historical model. That's what we're using.
Yeah, but in
The
War
way they
Thunder, you
balance it here, I
start
don't
in
know.
space, like
In the air.
5,000 feet in the air.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Whew. I think that does it for this episode here, guys. Any final thoughts on point 9 before we go on a short hiatus? Short, quote unquote, in Valve
Yeah.
time.
Another short hiatus. I really like the direction they're going. I've always had faith in SIG's developers and development team to get the job done. I know a lot of people have been up and down on whether they're any good, and they just continue to impress me with how early in the game it is for the quality of product we're seeing.
But there's still people
Absolutely.
that come to me, and I really have no defense against it. They're like, yeah, but Elite Dangerous started crowdfunding at the same time, and they're releasing. What the heck?
No,
Your
they
gamers,
did.
your
They
game
did.
sucks.
Well, Elite also is a much, when I sit and play the two, and I am an Elite backer. I love Elite. Elite's a great game. That said,
Elite started years ago.
yeah, they have an existing code base they were bringing up to date, and it's a very different game. I can't stress that enough. You may have to actually just play both of them to test out the ways in which they are different. You would not see this racing model in Elite. The dogfighting is very different in Elite, especially with the instant hit weapons. You put your crosshairs, you hit your button, you hit the guy. That's just how it's going to be. They're instant hit in a lot of cases. It's just a very different style of game, and it did start.
I
a long
also
time
got
ago
got
in
got the
Frostbite.
impression that it was a good, year or two ahead in development time. So
Yes.
not only does it have a simpler flight model where they're not dealing with realistic physics, they can just say, yeah, no, that ship doesn't turn that fast. Why? Because
Yes.
I'm programmer, I am root, therefore I said so.
Yes.
So that I
So,
think
and
is
they-
the advantage they have there. Like, we need to tweak a number? Yeah, we're just going to do it because we want to. Whereas they're, well, if we tweak that number, we're going to screw up an awful lot of other things that depend upon the way physics work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point. They're building a game that they can balance as if it were a game because
Yeah.
that's what they're making, and it's
Yes.
cool. It's great to see a space game that does that.
Yeah,
There was no problem with it, but it's not the same model.
Yeah.
it is not the same model. It is also a 6 Degrees of Freedom game, etc. But it is not the same flight model at all.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
it's definitely 60OF. There's no debating that. But
Well, let's take our leave then here, ladies and gentlemen. Again, the disembodied voice of Bridger, thanking you for joining us on Tales of Citizens here. I do apologize that we weren't able to get more shows out, though. To be honest, we wouldn't have had an awful lot to talk about before now, so it's probably for the best that this happened at this time. If we had to, take this kind of a hiatus, when the game is entering the public universe beta, then I would be much more upset with myself, essentially.
890 jump landing gear preview, Bridger. 890 jump landing gear.
We could talk about that for hours.
I could. I don't know.
Well, as you can see, they've reinforced it, so it's going to be a heavier ship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we can assume from that it's going to have 2 size 5 cannons on it.
Ben Lessig said it was the same size as the original Idris now.
Whoa, that
That's-
takes us back. All right,
Yeah. Wow.
stay tuned
So,
for a
banning
little bit
version
of
insights.
Bridger's bodega. What am I even saying?
Badoga?
I don't know what that is, but I need alliteration. I need Bridger's
Bridger's
hangover
bodacious
equivalent.
bodega?
You got it.
Except that I don't drink, so it doesn't make sense.
I can drink for you.
Bridger's balaclava.
Oh, okay. Let's go with
Baklava?
Baklava?
that.
That's what I meant.
All right. Well, it's good to have a show again. It's been a while. I look forward to our next one. So, Bridger, go ahead and sign us out.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay.
All right. I kind of screwed up the ending because I forgot I didn't. I lowered the music, the volume for you guys, but you guys couldn't hear that I was playing music, so I couldn't tell you to shut up and let the music play us out.
Well,
So
you
I tried
could
to
have.
mute
That
you, but I
would've-
muted the music instead.
Well, Bridger, you could have told us to shut up and let the music play, and that would have been fair.
This will just come out in the edits, right?
All right, time for Bridger's baklava. I don't know.
We'll catch that in post.
Bridger's verisimilitude. So tales of can openers. I don't know. I got nothing. So yeah, I'm the thing is, here's the thing. I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible, but the more I play Arena Commander in this sort of broken, buggy state, the more I just don't want to do shows about Star Citizen because it just makes me frustrated. I have to play it in its complete form. I hate playing broken things too much. So I'm probably
Then,
going to not play it again until we get to 1.0.
I am down for that. I will play it plenty.
I have lots of hope for it in the future, but playing it now just makes me desire it less. It's like I have to stop, but I had to do a show. It was horrible.
Okay. There's a great post on the forum that I have to read to you guys real quick here.
Okay.
The topic is M50 or 350R. It's a poll. What's your choice and why? It's M50 or 350R.
Okay.
And the first response is, right now the 350R is better in every way by a lot, except size and agility.
So better in almost every way,
Except not in agility.
or
Yeah.
size. It's easier
Or
to hit.
size.
I have not yet seen an M50 in dogfighting. I don't want to.
You did in the video there. Bridger almost hit one.
That's
I
true.
did.
Windshield bugged it.
Which is in its own way very impressive. But
Yeah.
I don't think I could put a shot on one right now. I mean, I've been working on getting better at shooting, but man, it's just not.
I basically, that game I was describing where I was playing against one other guy and we just constantly jousted for 5 minutes without killing each other, I just rage quit that. I was like, this isn't a game of skill. This is a game of who has the most patience, and I'm giving up.
So what I'm hearing is you lost.
I did. Yes.
I lack the patience for this horseshit. Yeah.
Essentially, yes. I know a lot of people really revel the ability to play something and give feedback, and I too have that itch, but I want to play something mostly complete and tell them where their design is wrong and what they should have fixed months ago.
Now, I hear there's this great set of games made by Microsoft called Age of Empires 2, and they were on sale for real cheap. I hear they're still looking for feedback.
Yeah, well, that's why you got to play Rise of Nations, Thrones, and Patriots, because that's awesome.
Oh, nice.
It was on sale a little while ago on Steam, actually.
Oh,
So
actually, speaking of old strategy games, Beyond Earth, the Alpha Centauri remake. Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to
I
that.
saw that. On the one hand, it does look cool. On the two hand, I have always hated
On the
Firaxis. On the two hand, yes, you heard me. On the two hand, I have always
the
hated
three-hand.
Firaxis for like the first 5 weeks after any Civ 5 product that gets released. After the game first comes out, I'm like, this is amazing, and then the second day, I'm like, but there's this really annoying thing the AI does that just breaks everything, and then there's this, and then there's that, and why did you release this broken, buggy game for Axis that has no replayability after the first 100 hours? And then
First 100 hours.
Yes, exactly. And then they released,
statement.
Gods and Kings, and I was like, wow, this fixes so many of the problems that I've had, and then introduces new ones. What the fuck? They never fixed this other thing and it broke all my mods that were the only way that I could enjoy the vanilla game. And then the new one comes out, and I was like, oh, well, this does a lot of really cool things, but they don't happen until halfway through, and the other things are still unfixed, and the mods that I have are broken again. So I'm not getting super excited about the initial release of Beyond
Here
Earth.
is that you're not bitter.
No,
Yes,
exactly.
That's true. That's
Really,
good. You've got a reasonable expectation.
it looked really cool until I realized that there are a lot of mechanics that are almost perfectly captured from Civ 5. Like, energy is perfectly analogous to gold in how the
True.
mechanic is used. And it's clear they're like, we just don't want to balance new mechanics. We'll just reuse these ones, even if they don't necessarily fit. We know they work from a balance standpoint, and that makes me think, oh man, even though this looks really cool, that screams lazy game design to me. Like, it's just going to be a bad mod of Civ 5. And so I am probably still going to buy it on day one. Damn it, why do I have to like stupid 4X games so much?
Yeah, I blame Master of Orion personally.
Master of Orion, isn't there the third one coming out? No, Gal
No,
Civ
the
3.
third one,
Gal
the third
Civ
one
3.
came out. and
That's
sucked
right, I
ass.
remember, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
Gal Civ 3 is on Steam. It's been in early access for a while, which means I've completely ignored it on purpose.
Yes.
But that's what
the right
Star
thing to
Citizen
do.
is. That's why it's frustrating me so much. I can't do early access. It just ruins the later experience of the game for me, and every time I've tried to do it. Like,
the important thing
early
is don't burn
access
yourself
to
out.
me is like a month ahead of time. That's early access. I'll do that.
You
Not 8 months.
You don't want the firefall effect where the entire game changes?
No. And then they completely have no ability to convince people to give it a second chance. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I don't want that.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't either. I think the good news is, given the rate of development they're having right now, we will probably see the private universe or public universe a lot sooner than I was predicting. It's still going to be a while, but I don't think it's going to be 2016 a while anymore.
Their
No.
development feels quick.
Yes.
They definitely have a really strong thing going now that they actually know what they're doing.
Gray. 914, Gray said, their development seems quick. So that on episode 154, when the public universe is being released in 2017, we can be like, hey, remember when Gray said it was quick? Oh, he was a fool. We wouldn't be old, though. It's only 2 years away. I don't know why everybody gets old, honestly. Maybe it's just me. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's going to be 2015. Hopefully by June 2015 we get public universe beta.
Yeah,
I that is extra optimistic, I think.
that is very optimistic. Yeah, but all that said, it's looking good.
No.
I'm very happy.
Transverse gets nothing on this show. Nothing. I've said its name once. It will never come up again. It is
No.
banished because it's not even worth the respect of acknowledging its existence. Therefore, that's me
PGI.
banishing it from the show. So,
PGI has burned their bridges.
yeah,
they burned
that
their
seems
bridge,
pretty
in
clear.
fact.
Yes, they have, actually. It's very clear. I was
Just-
super fucking excited for MechWarrior Online.
Did
And
you
then I
guys
wasn't
hear
anymore.
Did you guys hear what Piranha could have been developing instead of the game?
Wing
that you
Commander
wanted?
Online?
Online.
Huh?
Oh man.
Yeah.
I wonder
Glad they
if EA
didn't.
is like butthurt. Like maybe we should have given the Wing Commander license to those guys, like the Star Citizen guys. Because right now, obviously, even if he was given it, even if he really, really wanted to, they've done
couldn't.
so much work on this universe. They couldn't go back and make Wing Commander Online as much as Chris Roberts would want to, right? That would be a tragic. Like EA just doing something super evil for no reason. Be like, hey, CIG. You guys want the Wing Commander license for super cheap? Like, you are so evil.
Wait,
Yeah.
there's another company that had a similar we fucked up moment. It was Games Workshop when Blizzard made Warcraft. They approached Games Workshop and said, "Hey, we want to make a Warcraft computer strategy game, or I'm sorry, a Warhammer computer
RTS game?
strategy game.
Yeah.
Can we have that license? We'll give you a portion of the proceeds." And Games Workshop said, "No, under no circumstances."
We make our own stuff. We have total control. And Blizzard's
Exactly.
like, okay, I like
Fine.
that attitude, actually. We'll adopt it.
Yep. And Warcraft was born.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. So, anyway, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know how much tabletop role playing you guys do. We could have
Many years ago, I did.
edition war. Do we want to have an edition war here?
Hit me.
Who wants to argue
All right.
for the merits of 3.5?
Oh, is that what we're doing? I was gonna throw out the first D&D edition I played, which was the original one, inherited from my uncle.
Aha, TSR.
Yes, TSR. Dungeons and Dragons came in a box, but 3.5 D&D 5. Honestly, I've not looked at them. The last thing I played was Shadowrun's latest, which is pretty good.
Is that a cyberpunk?
Yeah,
universe?
it's a cyberpunk. It's the FASA world where elves and dwarves kind of came back. They were always latent in the genes, and then magic returned to the world, and shit fucked up. So
somebody who was human one day suddenly
And they
becomes a
would
gnome, and they're
start
like,
they would start to
"What?"
mutate. They would always
boy.
be that it wasn't just that. It was like they'd hit puberty, and then like they'd start having problems like tusks.
That. I guess you could describe that as a problem. Some would call it a weapon.
So yeah, it was a very cool game, and they brought it back recently. Of course, there's the Steam Shadowrun game you can buy that uses that rule set. It's actually a very good kind of throwback RPG, but I have not touched D&D recently.
So 5th edition is actually really good. There are some things, for example, 3.5 and Pathfinder are the problem I have with those systems is that they have rules for everything, which makes it feel like you need to know this massive rule book and everything in order to play it well. All these systems interact with each other, and you have to know these massive sets of rules of complex systems, which kind of works if you got into those games really early, because then you played them and learned them, and then a Player's Handbook 2 came out, and you've got a ton of new systems that you can learn. So it kind of worked for people, but if you're trying to get into it now, it's just such a massive beast. But the other thing is that systems that are more rules light, I wouldn't say, because there are some systems which are called rules light systems because the rules are really light. Like they're like the rule book is like 20 pages light. So that's what I would consider rules light. D&D 5th edition is like a rules medium game. And I think the advantage of that over a rules heavy game is that it really maximizes the major advantage that an RPG has, which is the arbitrator. The GM, the DM, whatever you want to call him, he gets to come in and say, this is what's fair, and or this is what makes an awesome story, so this is what's happening. Like, that's the advantage of having him. And D&D 5th edition leaves a lot of things sort of up to the DM in terms of how they work. Like, they purposefully leave some things sort of vague, allowing the DM to say, in this situation, it will work this way because it makes a lot more sense. Like, the problem with those super complicated systems is that when you take those super complicated systems and put them in certain situations, they come with really weird outcomes that don't make sense in reality, where a DM would say, no, that's not what happens. It doesn't make sense that the halfling should be able to go underneath the legs of this super agile guy, even though it says so in the rules or something like that, right? So instead, they sort of, that's just a bad example, by the way. Don't try to disassemble that, because I've already disassembled it in my head. It's a terrible example, but just a lot of things that are very, very specific that when applied to real world situations don't end up feeling right. So the GM can then make a lot of calls in 5th edition that would have been able to be rules lawyered out. Well, no, it says on page 13 of the player handbook 2 that my barbarian can take 3 levels in sorcerer, and then he can get a performance path. And I don't know, I'm just making stuff up here, but that's I don't know. It feels liberating to really just easily be able to find answers that you want, because you don't have to flip through 150 pages of rules. You only have to flip through like 40 pages of rules.
That is a much better experience. It's a lot better than the Palladium's old system.
The Palladium? What is the Palladium?
Yeah. Well, remember Palladium games? They did Rift and a few other RPGs, TMNT. Boy, they had a skill and a percentage, and a better know this 500-page thing. 6,000 source books later, you're good to go.
The other thing they tried to get away from is the sort of scaling problem they had in 4th and 3rd edition. In D&D, the problem they had was the armor class, or the defense value of characters as they got higher. This is for characters and NPCs and monsters. The armor class would get higher. So in order to hit somebody who's level 1, you would need to roll and add your modifiers and beat like a 12, right? And then at level 10... to hit a monster that you'd be facing at level 10, you'd need to roll and add your modifiers and beat an 18. And to beat something at level 15, you'd need to beat a 22, and then you'd need to beat a level 20, you need to beat AC 25. So what happened was, if the players ever went up against something that was a few levels higher than them, then they'd wind up never being able to hit the thing. It would basically be like the way World of Warcraft works, where you scale yourself with the monsters. So it was required that your characters would need to earn a certain amount of magic items that would give them +1s to their attack, or +2s or +3s, in order to get their attack number high enough to even hit the things at the level they were supposed to get, which required you to do all this constant gear tracking as a GM and make sure that you give them the new +4 sword, otherwise they're not able to level up properly. Yeah. In 5th edition, when you're attacking a monster with a lot of armor, or who's really dexterous, who's really hard to hit, he's an 18 at level 1 and at level 20. It doesn't matter. He's always an 18, because you don't get tons and tons of magic items giving you +1s, and you don't get huge bonuses to your attack. Instead of having to try and get all those things, magic items do more fun things, like wondrous items and other things like that like a talking breastplate, like just random cool things, instead of just a boring +2 sword. Like, it just, you can make magic items that do more interesting things than simply add to your attack, essentially, is what it comes down to. So I'm a real fan of that, because what they've done is they've scaled the hit points so that your damage scales a little bit as you go up, but the hit points scale a lot. So the difference between an easy foe is one that gets knocked out really quick, and a hard foe which takes quite a few licks and keeps on ticking, as it were. So I don't know. I think their whole process there, and sort of streamlining that leveling curve to prevent the gear treadmill for all intents and purposes, because it didn't actually feel... Now, the other thing that happens is when you fight things that are lower level, you can really feel like they're stronger than them now. It's really it's really a nice sort of curve that you can, like, one-shot things later on that were a lot harder when you were level 1. So you get the right feeling of power increase. Anyway, I've been reading a lot of blogs about D&D history in the last few days.
I would not have guessed.
No. Well, it's good to have creatures no longer like... I could have hit the goblin earlier, but he's just as hard to hit now that I am a demigod as he was when I was a neophyte.
Yeah, but when you hit him, he splats.
Yeah.
Now there
Yeah.
are a couple other things. There was one thing that I was reading, and it was like a history of the 15-minute adventuring day.
Okay.
And what it came down to was in third edition, Wizards added in the DMG a way to essentially determine how hard an encounter is.
Okay.
So you can add up
I
these
recall
numbers
that.
of your monsters, and it has like an encounter level or encounter rating. I don't
Yes,
remember
the
exactly.
EL.
EL.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, so what it says is here's how you can make a sort of balanced encounter for a party. But right underneath the paragraph where it describes how to do that, it says,
Yeah.
and also, here's how you would. So it says, okay, you should have 3 to 4 balanced encounters in one adventuring day before your party's mostly exhausted of resources like spells and rests and potions of healing and recovering of hit points and things like that, right? And then people took that and essentially ran with it, and the culture became balanced fights. Always make balanced fights. And
Okay.
despite the fact that in the rulebook it said, and by the way, you could have a bunch of easy encounters and have them face those, and it'd be 6 to 7 per adventuring day, or a couple of hard encounters. Basically, the rulebook implied you should mix this up because the same thing is boring. Whereas fighting some weaker enemies is sometimes fun to feel powerful, and fighting some hard enemies is good because it makes you think more, right? Where instead they made everything a perfectly balanced encounter where you're expected to use 25% of your resources as a group, and what happened then is the sorcerer, or the wizard rather, was always really powerful later on in the thing. That was always a problem. The sorcerer or the wizard just outscaled everyone in terms of his ability to just kill things. But it was
the end nukes when you could just like launch a empowered whatever the hell it is and everything
Yeah.
just dies.
but this concept of the balanced encounter fed into that problem and made it worse and worse, because the DMs that fell into this culture of we've got to have these balanced encounters, what they allowed to happen is the wizard would go into a quote-unquote balanced encounter and blow every spell he had, destroying the encounter like it was nothing, just easy. Then he would say, all right, guys, I'm out of spells. Let's sleep for the day. Let's just end the adventure after this 15-minute fight and sleep so I can get my spells back. And the concept of the fighter and most of the other characters that would be able to do consistent damage every fight, whereas the wizard would lose power over the course of the day.
But
That
nobody
became
treated it that way.
Nobody treated it that way because the DM just let them have a 15-minute adventuring day and a full rest, whereas the author of this article is like, no. If they try that shit on me, there's a troll party wandering through the area that stumbles upon them, and the wizard is now powerless. That's how I deal with that bullshit.
Well, yeah,
He's got
looking
to.
at the,
If you do that, the wizard conserves his stuff. He's not as powerful. That's the idea.
Neverwinter Nights would let you like sleep in a dungeon where you just close the door between you and the next monster. I was like, this is a
No.
problem.
Yeah. Well, as long as your pen and paper game doesn't ever try to do things like, you can't open that chest. I don't care how big your axe is, because you don't have the red key.
Yeah.
Red chest needs the red key. No, I
Well, that is actually a lot of DM advice. Is like you don't make your players jump through the very specific hoops that you created. That's very bad. Very, very bad DM.
Yeah, my games were always very organic. I had a set of encounters I wanted to have happen, and then whatever they wanted to do to get to that point was up to them. Like there was a definite episodic feel to what I put together.
Oh man, did you guys watch the Acquisitions Incorporated stuff from the Penny Arcade Expos by any chance?
No.
I watched some of it. I didn't catch all of it though. I was watching the live stream stuff.
Well, if you guys are ever interested in some podcasts, just do actually, I'll link it in the chat for you guys if you want. I'll put it in the show notes. Let me see if I can find it. Reddit.com/r/DND next is where I found it. There's somebody put together a download. I gotta remember how to spell acquisitions. Acquisitions. Yes, this is the one. There is a link to a download. Here it is in the chat. If I can find the chat, there it is. And that download is on Mediafire, and it is all of the podcast episodes of Acquisitions Incorporated. And what this is it's Jerry and Mike from Penny Arcade, plus Scott Kurtz, who also works at Penny Arcade now, and a random intern. Not random, but an intern that changes and revolves throughout time because they are apparently expendable, playing D&D with one of the Wizards of the Coast DMs, Chris Perkins. And he is a really good DM, and they are hilarious to listen to because Mike and Jerry and Scott are all just really funny guys. And they have Will Wheaton is their first intern. Patrick Rothfuss is their second intern, and then Morgan Webb is the third intern. And
Well done.
most of these were audio podcasts, and then they also started doing live shows at the PAXs, and you can find those on YouTube. But they are great. They are just hilarious. I can't recommend them enough. If you are looking for something to listen to and you enjoy listening to very charismatic people play a very enjoyable encounter. I mean, so to give you the first episode. So the guy who goes by Gabe in the yellow shirt, that's his alter ego is Gabe, but his name is Mike Krahulik. He's the artist at Penny Arcade.
Yeah.
He had never played a tabletop role-playing game before this. And so he said, well, I'm going to play a wizard. And they're like, okay, what are you going to name your wizard? He said, Jim. And they're like, really? You're going to make a wizard named Jim? You're not going to fantasy it up or anything? No. He's going to be named Jim Dark Magic. And they're like, Jim Dark Magic? Really? That's the name you're going to go with? Yes, of the New Hampshire Dark Magics. And he decided to make his wizard like this mage, this magician that was just inept, an inept magician, and he would like they would be chasing him out of the town because he just did such a terrible job as a magician, and he'd somehow still managed to write his name in the sky, Jim, on the way out, so they'd remember the brand or something. Oh man, it's hilarious. Anyway,
pretty good.
I forgot that there's supposed to be a meeting happening for Team Legacy. I will stop gushing about Dungeons and Dragons now. Okay.
I understand. Good luck. Have fun. Enjoy your Team Legacy meeting.
Yeah.
And
Catch
we'll go
you soon.
Yeah. I will definitely
Help with
still be active.
Citizens Skype chat. Anyone who's still listening, remember you can get into that if you ask.
Also, yes, and yes, we'll hopefully be back sometime in the near future with 1.0 or before. And
I'm hoping before.
Feedback at talesofcitizens.com if you have any suggestions for us on what topics we might cover. And also, if you have any posters from Gamescom that you might want to swap with me. Okay?
All right. Well, guys, thank you. The Unrepentant Gaming Group always appreciates their free advertising here.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to our rambling here. You guys who are still in YouTube asking what the hell we're doing.
Yeah. What the heck game is this?
We're just chatting. Oh, well, actually, they're going to release that Pen and Paper Star Citizen game.
Oh.
No, I'm just fucking with you.
Oh, really?
What? What? I would play that.
I know.
It's a stretch goal. It's being made by Piranha.
I want to play the Kid Crimson class. Can I play the Kid Crimson class? All right.
Can I be a gun mage? All right. You guys have fun.
Oh, jeez.
Catch you soon.
See
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Oops, that is not off air. I turned us on air. Oh no, I turned on the intro. No! Stop hitting buttons!